Welcome to my presentation on the common Pochard, also known as Athia farina. The common Pochard is a stocky diving duck. The name Athia farina is derived from Greek and Latin sources. Athia comes from Aethuia, which is a seabed referred to by the Greek author Aristotle, and farina means wild game in Latin. Athia farina are around 42 to 49 centimeters long with a wingspan of 72 to 82 centimeters. Males weigh between 585 grams and 1,240 grams, and females weigh between 465 grams and 1,090 grams. I'll let them play actually. That is a male courtship call. That is a male calling to the female. That is a male taking flight. That is a female landing. That is a female taking flight. And that is a female calling to the male. Mature females have grey-brown plumage all over their body. The wings are a deeper brown than the males, and the head is also brown but far less vibrant than the male's head. The female's head also has several grey patterns around the cheek and throat, and also pale grey eye stripes. The eyes are deep brown, and the legs and feet are grey. Juveniles are visually similar to mature females, except with much more mottling of the plumage. Their inner head patterns are eye stripes, and the mantle, breast, and flank are a considerably darker shade of grey. Mature males look different in and out of breeding season. In the breeding plumage, the upper mantle, rump, tail, and breast are all black, and the rest of body is grey. On the upper wings, the covert feathers are dark grey, and the flight feathers are silver with dark grey tips, while the underwing is white. The head and eyes are the most sexually dimorphic features. The head is a light chestnut brown, and the eyes are a bright orange. The bill is dark grey with a light grey band in the centre and a black nail at the tip. Their legs and feet are grey but have a hint of blue that females lack. In their eclipse plumage, they more closely resemble females. The common pockard is listed as vulnerable by the IUCN Red List, but its stats in the UK is a lot worse. There are only roughly 700 breeding pairs observed in the UK. In the winter, these numbers increase up to about 30,000 individuals. Their global population is roughly 1.2 million, with almost 800,000 mature individuals. There is far too large of a disparity in the global population and the UK population. It's observed across Europe, Asia, and Africa. They breed across most of the Palearctic, except for Northern Africa, South Europe, South Asia, and East Asia. In the winter, they tend to migrate towards Southwest Europe and the UK to escape the freezing conditions of Russia and Scandinavia. You can commonly see them in a V-shaped formation when they're migrating. The common pockard is very sociable and gregarious, forming large flocks in the winter with other diving ducks, but most commonly the tufted duck. The tufted duck is another member of the Itea genus, which would explain their synergy. The common pockard tends to inhabit marshes and lakes that are at least a meter in depth. They feed on aquatic plants, insects, roots, seeds, crustaceans, worms, mollusks, and small fish. They tend to feed more often at night. They feed by diving or dabbling in the water. They can dive up to 2.5 meters deep, and they also search for food on the surface where they filter mud to find invertebrates. They do have a preference for shallow water, even though deeper water has higher food concentrations. In the UK, they breed in lowland Scotland and eastern England, but have been observed on rare occasions in Northern Ireland and Ireland itself. Breeding season is April through June, but later in the north. They form pairs in the winter, late winter and early spring, and they are seasonally monogamous. They tend to remain together until a week after incubation. They build their nests in small depressions of the ground among vegetations, and they're usually built of leaves, reed, grasses, and down. In a typical clutch, there are 8 to 10 pale green-grey eggs. They are common victims of brood parasites, interspecific and intraspecific. The most common interspecific brood parasite is the tufted duck. As they're precocial birds, it's a lot less costly to raise them, which is why it is more common in precocial birds. There are also not much differences between tufted duck chicks and eggs and our pockard duck and egg. Uh, they require additional protections due to their dwindling global population, specifically in the UK. Other parts of the UK, other parts of the world, sorry, are seemingly more hospitable to the common pockard, despite the UK being commonly sought out by similar ducks. The common pockard is heavily affected by habitat loss caused by the drainage of their marshes and lakes for agricultural expansion. Another contributor to this is changes in hydrochemistry due to hypereutrophication as a result of the agricultural runoff. They do suffer hunting pressure from humans globally, but this is less apparent in the UK due to protective policies we have. However, eggs and chicks are still sold around the UK on the exotic pet market. The competition, predation, and decline of other species also contribute to the dwindling number of pockards. Introduced species like the American mink and native species like the wild boar and the red fox all impose pressure through potential brood loss as they are known to predate on the eggs of the common pockard. They're also a victim of the invasive common carp because the common carp is excellent at outcompeting other organisms that share prey due to their voracious nature. Another reason that they're dwindling, that the numbers are dwindling, is because number of black-headed gull colonies are also declining. They tend to associate with colonies of black-headed gulls because they provide additional predator deterrence through vigilance. It's also been shown in studies that there is an increase in breeding success rates and female survival when nesting near these colonies. Water abstraction has increased due to high demand of more space for agriculture. They're highly sensitive to water conditions and changes to the water. Climate change can act synergistically with water abstraction to alter salinity levels that could make them unsuitable to the common pockard. And there is also evidence that there are changes to the sex ratio of the common pockard, favoring males, which is believed to be a direct result of high female mortality from migration, stress, and predation. It has been shown that removing adult fish from an artificial body of water made that body of water more attractive to nesting pairs of common pockard in the vicinity. The lack of adult fish directly increased the abundance of invertebrates and plants that the common pockard typically feed on. A study showed that the creation of artificial islands with wide strips of littoral habitats would provide very secure breeding habitats for the common pockard. Nest survival was improved by the reduced visibility of nests. In 2000, the WFD stated that aim to improve the ecological status of all surface waters by 2027. This would include the mediation of hypereutrophication, which, as we've spoken about before, can deter the common pockard. They were protected in the UK by the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, and there are general lacking resources around public awareness. Bear's pockard is another member of the genus. There are new guidelines, the restoration project, support actions. Climate change is a very serious issue, and the consequences do impact the common pockard too. The continued expansion of agriculture on marshes and lakes is still likely to increase as demand increases. It's expected that we'll need to produce 60% more food by 2050. There's also a lack of local control when it comes to non-native animals like the American mink and common carp. It could pose an issue if even more non-natives begin assimilating. These issues could be overcome and addressed by obviously addressing climate change, which is a much larger issue, improving existing farmsteads and crop fields instead of expanding the agricultural areas. And where it's feasible, some local control could be given to local organizations to safely and humanely manage non-native populations that cause undue damage to the native animals. Yeah, and that is my presentation on the common pockard. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening.